The spokesperson of Cameroon's Ministry of Defense Communication Department, Colonel Atonfak Cyril, says that the military is in the northwest and southwest regions of the country to maintain peace, to restore and maintain peace, and not to kill civilians, not to destroy properties, apart from the Ngarbu incident where the military recognizes and acknowledges that some elements burnt down some houses and killed some civilians. The military has not destroyed anything in other parts of the region, and the colonel was speaking on the program La Vérité en Face on Équinoxe Television yesterday, and he reiterated the missions of the military in those two regions, indicating, however, that there are some elements who commit some mistakes on the ground. For me, I'm strong Sanda.
Apart from the Ngarbu incidents of the Ndu subdivision, Zonga Mantung division, elements of the Cameroonian Defense and Security Forces have never burnt a house, nor killed civilians in the Anglophone regions, according to Colonel Research Atomfek, head of the communications units of the Cameroonian Ministry of Defense.
We have the case of Gabu, where military burned house. It has been proved by commission. So I can say that in Gabu, military burned house. They has been arrested and they are in jail now. But for the other case, I say, did you have any evidence to show us? But me, I can show you, not later than tomorrow, I can bring you evidence showing terrorists burning house, killing people with military uniform.
As guests on La Vérité en Face on Equinoxe Television, the senior military officials said the killing of over 10 children and 3 women was an error from a professional army.
L'armée peut commettre des erreurs. C'est arrivé que l'armée commette des erreurs. Je vous garantis ici.
The incident of Ngarbu is an error? Is that what you're saying?
In French,
was it an error?
In French, we call it in operation collateral damage. And you have collateral damage which can result on operation. If you have collateral damage during operation, you will not be punished. But exceptionally, in the case of Garbu, we discovered that collateral damage was not due to operation.
But Colonel, we have testimonies of people who said my door was knocked in the night. My mother brought out, killed. My son killed.
Due to misconducting some soldier. They are today in jail. They are waiting for the procedure, and they will assume.
Question if they regret having initially said the killings were committed by armed separatists. The spokesperson of the Cameroonian army said no.
Est-ce que vous regrettez les propos que vous avez tenus niant le massacre de ces enfants?
Non, pas du tout. Non et non. Vous allez remarquer que, tout comme nous, ces organisations de défense des droits de l'homme se sont trompées.
With numerous gun battles, confrontations and displacements still being reported in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon for over 3 years, the colonel maintained that the army in the Anglophone regions is to restore peace.
People are still living in fear. People are still living in uncertainty. And you're saying that the situation is returning to normalcy? How is it returning to normalcy?
In fear because of terror. There is a minority, small groups, who are working for terror every day. We call them in French terrorists, secessionists. They are killing people, they are burning houses, they are burning school, they are shut up people, they are burning hospital, and so on. It's because of them that some population can continue to fear or to leave their home and run away.
Some are seeing the enemy, the military as an enemy because of some of the atrocities highlighted by organizations like Human Rights Watch. Will you say that organization
Human Rights Watch is not a Bible?
Is not also credible?
Human Rights Watch is not a Bible. It's not a Bible, Human Rights Watch.
I'm talking about the relationship between the people and the military.
And me too.
They are not only afraid of the separatists, but the military also.
I say that the job of military is to work to install peace. Is their job.
The crackdown that is going on now,
no,
how is it restoring peace?
There is no crackdown.
No, General Carvalho, who is the commander of the 5th Military Region, said in an interview to our correspondent in Bamenda that it is a global operation. It is a global operation that is going on. After the Widi Bali operation, there was now the Ngoku Tunja and Bui operation where separatists are being killed. The soldiers are going after the separatists and killing them and killing some population in the midst of the gun battles who have caught up in the gun battles and so on. So how is it restoring peace? How is that crackdown restoring peace?
Operation are conducting everywhere in Cameroon, every time by army. The situation of Northwest and Southwest is not exceptional.
Question if the army is in favor of an international independent investigation into atrocities committed by belligerent parties in the Anglophone regions. The colonel could not say yes or no. Colonel Cyril Serge Atomfax said the corpse of journalist Samuel Wazizi will only be released at the end of an inquiry launched by President Paul Biya.
For me, Armstrong Sander reporting there. And some politicians were equally reacting on the issue, and notably the Anglophone crisis and the discussions that are ongoing between the government, some top government officials, and some separatist leaders in view of finding a way out of the Anglophone crisis. And the opinions are divergent and convergent according to the political leaders. Government is not doing enough for political leaders of the opposition, but for those of the ruling party, government has been putting in enormous efforts to restore peace and normalcy in those two regions. Immaculate Fogwe.
The United Nations Security Council resolution on the 1st of July 2020 called for an end to hostilities and general ceasefire around the world in order to be able to better fight against the coronavirus pandemic. The call pushed the government of Cameroon to invite Sisi Kwayu Tabi and 8 other Ambazonian leaders to hold talks on what could be done in order that ceasefire can be respected by both parties. The government of Cameroon was represented by Leopold Maxime Eko, head of the General Directorate for External Research. The private discussion carried out by both parties sparked a wave of reactions. During the program, Droit de Réponse aired on Équinoxe Television, the topic was deliberated upon.
Mais il faut dire qu'il faut qu'il y ait de la sincérité de part et d'autre.
According to Barrister Mustafa Gwana, legal advisor for the Social Democratic Front Party, the two parties involved are not sincere as they have not shown their willingness of bringing the conflict to an end. He adds that for ceasefire to succeed, both parties should be ready for peace so that the conditions that will be brought to the table will favor both parties.
Vous avez en face de vous un gouvernement d'incompétents.
Justin Noah, Deputy Secretary General for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, describes the government as incompetent. He says the government never wants to give a listening ear to those who can come up with concrete solutions, reason why they always come up with poor solutions, making them unable to attain their goals.
Parce qu'ils ont entendu le MSC en parler.
Si elle était officielle en ce moment.
Dr. Marcelin Bema, representative of the Cameroon People Democratic Movement political party, replies Justin Noah by saying that the government has always given a listening ear to all those who came up with ideas that can bring an end to the Anglophone crisis. He cites some actions carried out by the government, such as amnesty to some Anglophone detainees, the creation of a Disarmament Commission for the reintegration of ex-separatist fighters, the organization of the major national dialogue, and the reconstruction plan for the Northwest and Southwest regions. All these, he says, were meant to come up with concrete solutions to end the Anglophone crisis.
Enfin, le chef d'État avec son gouvernement a toujours laissé la main tendue pour que cela soit fait.
Il y a eu des négociations.
Mustafa Gwana adds that the government has always hidden any evidence that the new will tarnish their image, even if they know it is very important for the population. So he is not surprised that the talks were done in hiding.
La vérité, c'est pas nouveau.
Pour que le gouvernement et le chef de l'État en particulier.
Edmond Kambia, Équinoxe TV's consultant, says no concrete solutions were taken during the major national dialogue. He thinks if discussions were done in good faith, then the return of peace in the two conflict-hit regions could be possible.
Investigation dans le nord et le sud-ouest. En réalité, pour moi, ce n'est même pas une condition. Ce n'est même pas une condition. Cela va de soi. Parce que ce soit
And Cameroon's Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi says that what is being said, notably on the social media with regards to a meeting that is said to have taken place between some top government officials and some separatist leaders, is not true, and this is contained in a release issued by Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi concerning the talks going on between government and some separatist leaders after the United Nations Security Council called for a global ceasefire in a resolution. And now concerning the reconstruction of the northwest and southwest regions of the country, the minister delegate at the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Regional Development, Paul Tasson, and his collaborator of Mame of Kumbunjong, Donatus, are determined to restore peace through the reconstruction. And the minister minister delegate Paul Tasson indicates that the efforts to reconstruct the destroyed parts of the two regions are well on course. They just surrounded a 2-week mission to the two Anglophone regions of the country with the purpose of paving the way forward for the reconstruction in order to fast-track the return to peace and normalcy, according to him. Details in this report.
After spending 2 weeks in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, Minister Paul Tasson, National Coordinator of the Presidential Plan for the Reconstruction and Development of the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon, popularly known as the PPRD, says he is happy with the exchanges they've had with inhabitants of the Anglophone regions.
Coming out of the two regions, we are confident to say that the people are overwhelmingly expecting the plan to unfold, to roll out its different. People are conscious of the fact that the level of suffering has peaked. The level of suffering has attained levels where it can only get better. It can't get worse. This was crystal clear when we talked to the people. And of course, I think even keen observers of the scene, we testify to the fact that the level of bad news that we used to hear is not the same. The frequency of bad news is not the same as it was.
Responding to opinions that the PPRD is putting the cart ahead of the horse at a time when gun battles are still being recorded in the northwest and southwest regions, Minister Paul Tasson says Cameroon has a strategy and the PPRD will fast-track peace in the Anglophone regions.
The process of building peace and the process of recovery and reconstruction are not mutually exclusive. They can happen simultaneously. Particularly, it's good to note that we are not the first country to go through a violent conflict. Other countries have gone through this before us. Templates exist, templates built on the experience of other countries who have gone through this kind of situation before us. So we are not inventing. We are simply...
Paul Tasson also outlined a strategic plan employed by the government to reconstruct the minds of the people battered by the armed conflict.
We have done a deep analysis of the actors of the crisis. And of course, alongside, we've looked at the various categories of the beneficiaries of the crisis. And the major beneficiaries certainly are the households or the individuals, if you may. But at the same time, we have certain institutional beneficiaries of the crisis, one of which is naturally the state, because the state is the owner of much of the infrastructure that was destroyed. We have institutions like the churches, which have been present and very active in the development of communities in the Northwest and the Southwest, and a lot of Cameroon, of course. Alongside that, we have the chieftaincy institution, which also has suffered enormously from the crisis. But equally within all the communities, we have cultural and development associations, which have been major actors in mobilizing our communities for development. One of our intentions is to be able to load up capacity on these institutions, especially the community-based organizations, village cultural and development associations, cooperatives where they exist, churches, why not?
The sensitization phase, according to Paul Tasson, is the first stage of the PPRD. Accompanied by his assistant, Menjong Donatus, the team began its mission in Bamenda, chief town of the northwest region of Cameroon, on June 22nd, 2020. And after spending 5 days, they headed to Boya in the southwest region of Cameroon, where the sensitization ended on July the 3rd, 2020.
And one of the areas awaiting construction and reconstruction is Ishobi village, the village of the former mayor of Mamfe. And in the report coming up next, Southwest correspondent Derek Jato shows us the ugly picture of the road linking Mamfe and Ishobi village.
This Mamfe-Ishobi road in itself is a nightmare. And this is what it takes for the Cameroon military to cover the 8 kilometers Mamfe-Ishobi road. And on this particular mission, a general is with the element.
But I prepared to come here.
General Eba Benoit, commander of the 22nd Military Region, is visiting the area. This Mamfe-Ishobi road has recorded a lot, and it is said to be the comfort zone of the separatist fighters. It was along this route that Mayor Princely Ojong, the mayor of the Mamfe Council, was targeted and killed recently. And the Army General must have seen that these elements of the 21st Motorized Infantry Brigade are now fighting 2 battles at the same time. The posted of the road on the one hand, and the increasing attacks from the separatist fighters on the other. And the separatist fighters don't only use this road, but they also dictate the pace of activities here. These heavy-duty road construction machines, for instance, came to better the state of this stretch of road, and the separatist fighters, we were told, were not comfortable, and to them, the best way to stop works here was to burn it down, and the population is today paying the price.
They move cacao for bush, wait for transport them, for time no day.
And the story has not changed. The Mamfe-Ishobi road is very difficult and very dangerous.
From Ishobi, we're going to take you now to Kishmatari, a locality in the Garwa 3, a subdivision in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon, where hardship has taken hold of the population. Inosenazi reports.
Inhabitants of Kismatari village, situated in the Garwa 3 subdivision of the north region of Cameroon, are in dire need of water to quench their thirst. Having a drop of the precious liquid is as hectic as a fool's errand. Majority of these people rely on agriculture for survival, but absence of water hampers cultivation. Lack of rain does not permit us water the crops we grow. We fold arms and watch. From December till January or February, there is no water for us to farm. To get the water, long distances of at least 10 kilometers must be covered by the population who transport it on their heads several times daily. Water sources are far off. When you effectuate a 2-round fetch, you won't have energy to proceed. You must really economize the first precious liquid. In the village exist boreholes, but most often they run dry.
Beaucoup de petits villages quittent, boivent jusqu'à ce jour l'eau du puits. On ne rencontre dans certains villages que quelques races à un forage.
It is in a bid to remedy to an extent the situation that the Swiss ambassador to Cameroon and the Minister of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development via the Swiss-Cameroon bilateral cooperation brainstorm on providing some needs like solar bulbs and modern boreholes in Kismatari village in the coming weeks.
Nous allons installer ici à Kismatari.
We shall install in the village 100 solar keys.
Sur les 2 grandes centrales solaires pour les systèmes de pompage d'eau.
We will also ensure end of the water crisis so that agricultural activities continue.
Ici, également, ça apportera comme ça des solutions pour l'agriculture et l'élevage ainsi que le confort pour les différents ménages.
These envisaged projects, when realized, are believed will relieve the population who have been farming for only 3 of the 12 months. They shall be able to cultivate every month and multiply their income.
Inhabitants of Nkong-Samba-2 municipality in the Mongo Division littoral region of Cameroon are urging local authorities to rehabilitate the municipal stadium abandoned in ruins. Rehabilitation works, which started some months ago, were later abandoned by the company that was executing the works. Smanjik and Gabriel reports.
After taking over as new municipal authorities in Nkong-Samba-2, much is on their plate. Inhabitants of Nkong-Samba-2 municipality say the government has abandoned them as they lack sporting infrastructures. It is a big shame to us in Nkong-Samba, a town that once had a big team like Aigle of Mongo, champion of Cameroon on several occasions, but today no field. As things seems to be moving ahead in the country, in Nkong-Samba, things are moving backward. It is not normal. Let the authority think about us. The municipal stadium of Nkong-Samba is now a disgrace. Grass has engulfed it. The stands have also been covered with grass and its roof taken away by heavy downpour. It's a shame that a divisional headquarters like this one doesn't have a field. We ought to have a field that is up to standard all over the national territory. Renovation works are going on pitches, but Nkong-Samba has been left behind. According to local sources, the sum of 40 million francs CFA was allocated for the renovation of the municipal stadium in Nkong-Samba. The company had started work but later abandoned. It is not only the municipal stadium of Nkong-Samba that has been abandoned. The Mongo division is suffering from many uncompleted or abandoned projects.
Talking Point is up next. Barrister Agbo Felix Kongo, human rights lawyer, founder and president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, is joining us in this edition of the news from the Southwest Regional Capital, Buea. Good evening, Barrister.
Good evening, Babila.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Cameroon maintains that there is a gradual return to normalcy in Anglophone Cameroon. You are in Buea. You are leading a center which is working in the area of human rights and democracy in Africa, and you have your ears and eyes on the ground across Anglophone Cameroon. Tell us, what's the situation there?
Well, it depends on where you are in the southwest and the northwest regions. Those who are in the urban cities, for example, a place like Buea, Limbe, Tiko, and Bamenda town, life is gradually coming back to normalcy. But the fact that life is coming back to normalcy doesn't mean the armed conflict has come to an end. I think people have just looked for other ways of getting back to the normal lives. You know, the whole fear that engulfed the population, gradually people are trying to beat that fear. But you see, I don't want us to base on the fact that life is coming back to normalcy and not trying to look at the root causes of the problem. I believe that there is still the need for us to look at the root causes of the problems so we can find a holistic solution.
All right, life is gradually returning to normalcy according to Barrister Agbobala in the major urban centers. What about the remote areas? What about places like Kwakwa, places like Ngi, Jakiri, and so on?
Areas is getting worse. You know, people are still being displaced. Atrocities are still taking place in the rural areas. There is still the insecurity, there is still tension, there is still gross and systematic human rights violations. So in those areas, very little has changed, and that is why it's everybody who has a concern for these people would pray that we find a long-lasting solution.
There is still human rights violations, destruction of properties going on. Who is doing what? Barrister Agbo Felix, come on. Barrister, if you are getting us.
Oh, yes, Babila, please. I didn't get your question.
Right, I'm saying that you indicated that in the areas away from the urban centers, human rights violations are still going on, human rights abuse, destruction of properties, atrocities being committed. And I asked the question, who is doing what? All right, Barrister Agbobala joining us there from the southwest regional chief town, Boya. And Barrister, I was asking the question. You indicated some few seconds ago that away from the urban centers, human rights violations, destruction of properties are still going on. And I ask, who is doing what?
Well, the human rights violations, the burning of villages, unlawful arrests, extrajudicial killings have not stopped. Burning down of villages might have reduced because if you remember that we had documented close to 2,030 villages that were burned down by the military. But over the last couple of months, we not really have cases where villages were completely or partially burned. But we've had lots of extrajudicial killings. You remember what happened at Biaka Street, not far away from my office in Boya, where some young men who were allegedly smoking marijuana were shot to death. You remember what happened in Gabu, where, I mean, the government at least acknowledged responsibility. What happened in Campaign Street in Great Sokol, where 2 young men were gunned down. What happened in Pini, what happened in Babuti quarters in Boya town, where 7 people were killed. So these incidences are widespread and systematic, and there is a need for us to have a commission of inquiry to really investigate, you know, and bring out reports and bring to justice those who have been condemning, those who have been contributing to these widespread human rights violations.
The spokesperson of the head of the communication department of the Ministry of Defense, speaking on La Vérité en Face yesterday, said that some of those atrocities are committed by civilians dressed in military uniform. What information do you have about this?
You see, Babila, the atrocities that we have documented as the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, we make sure that our staff members who are on the ground, our contact persons, they can ascertain who did what, whether it was a civilian that wore a military dress or it was a military. The instances that we documented and we published, we clearly stated that they were done by the military. If there were cases that were done by non-state actors, we did mention that it was done by non-state actors. But from our findings, very few isolated incidences were done by the non-state actors wearing a military uniform. So I find it intellectually dishonest from the part of the spokesperson of the military to make such statements. But you know, everybody has his own way of documenting. Some might just depend on social media, but what we do is that we go on the ground. We have our contacts, we have our network, and as a professional organization, we have to vet whatever information we have. At times, we don't only double check, we triple check to ensure that whatever we publish, you know, it's the truth and nothing but the truth.
How credible are the informations published by Barrister Agbo Bala and the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa? How credible are those informations?
Well, Babila, in terms of our professionalism, our credibility, I don't think anyone who is sane would doubt our professionalism. Don't forget, we have staff members who've worked in the United Nations, in the Human Rights Unit and in other units. We have our young staff members who graduated from the university who have gone through rigorous training. To show how credible Chada is, the State Department would cite us in your report. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International will cite us in your report. That is why all the serious international organizations, we have addressed the American House Congress, the UK House of Lords, and the Canadian House of Commons, just to show how credible our information is. Don't forget, sometime in 2018, we stated that a village was born in the Guti area, and a lady popularly known as Mami Maria was burned in her sleep to death. And the former communication spokesperson, Colonel Bajek, said it was false because RFE and Jeune Afrique carried the information that we tweeted, and he said it was false. So the next day, I published a picture of the lady, and then I asked by Colonel Bajek to make another statement. Until then, he never responded. So what the spokesman said is a farce. We said the military was responsible for Ngabu. We said the military was responsible for Wazizi. We said the military was responsible for the killings of what happened in Great Support, in Pini, in Babuti, you know, and we have all been proven right. And our credibility is not only in condemning government. I think we are one of the few human rights organizations in this country that condemns violations committed by non-state actors and government. We are on record. You know, if you look at the chopping of hands and limbs that happened in the Fako region of CDC workers, we condemned it. We issued a statement. We have about 1,500 pages of violations that has been committed by both parties. And there are times also that the people in government should be honest enough that it's not because we condemn what they do that they will question our credibility. We as an organization have proven beyond reasonable doubt that we are one of the most credible and leading organizations in this country.
Colonel Atonfar used one of your tweets to justify his point that you're not credible, Barrister Agbo Felix Pongo. He said that you said in a tweet that the military killed a child in the southwest region, and he illustrated with military knowledge that it could not have been the military because the bullets used will not really do not correspond to the incident, that the bullet could not have been used to kill a child at close range, a bullet that kills at a very long distance. What do you have to say about that?
Babila, you see, I'm a bit disappointed by the statement, you know, especially when he imputes to my credibility as a person and that of Chada in general. You see, what is laughable is that at no point in time did we condemn government for that atrocities. If you look at the statement that we issued on the 22nd of May 2019, we clearly state there were these were unidentified government. And in a panel discussion that I was with the Colonel, organized by the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, I said it clearly. We had a discussion, a heated discussion on other things. And I was happy when I started speaking when he was there. I said I was happy that he came in, and it's good for me to say the things that I'm saying when he's there. Because we are used to telling truth to power. We don't really care who is the one who is concerned. You know, the period of bullying, of blackmailing has passed. Some of us have risen beyond that, and we cannot be intimidated. In that panel discussion, I said it that it's not at times everything that is said on social media or by the press that a human rights organization should take hook and sinker. That a human rights organization is not a propaganda, cannot be used as a propaganda tool for anybody, be it the non-state actors and the government. So we say it the way we see it, neutrality and impartiality is our cardinal watchword. And in that he said, I could not apologize to government when I realized that no. If you go to our website of 22nd of May 2019, it's clearly there. So I think I deserve an apology from him. I know that those who are in government, they never eat humble pie. They don't apologize when they are wrong. But the day I will meet him, I hope sooner than later I'll be in another panel with him. I will tell him to publicly apologize to me and to Chada for the statements which are unfounded and defamatory to our person and to the organization.
Barrister, apart from the Ngarbu massacre, the Ngarbu incident, which investigations ordered by the head of state proved that the military committed the atrocities there, the killing of the children, the babies, and some separatist fighters, according to the Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Defense does not identify itself with any of the atrocities that you're highlighting there, attributing them to soldiers and so on.
Haven't the commission that they created acknowledged the fact that they were responsible for what happened in Gabu? So what is it that they are not identifying it? Haven't we the killings in Bonduma, they don't need to agree. We have evidence, and if they want, we will have a report that we will be publishing soon. The killings in Bonduma, they did it. You know, the DO and the mayor came there to see the corpses. We had a fact-finding mission also that came from the UN, and they spoke to some of the witnesses. Whatever we have documented, we have evidence. As I said, we are not acting as a propaganda machine for anybody. Our goal is to stand for justice and to fight for the promotion and protection of human rights. The only side we support is the side of truth and the side of non-violation. So it's a bit surprising that having Gabu, that all of us know the government acknowledged the fact that the military were responsible. I learned the other day that some people are currently being tried, if not already been convicted. How would the spokesperson go on TV and don't acknowledge the fact? I heard him talking about Wazizi, giving different reasons. You know, the president promised the French ambassador that Wazizi, that an investigation would take place. But trust me, I've interviewed somebody who spent time in jail with Wazizi, and all the findings from the press and the civil society organizations are the truth. So it's not everything that we spin. At times also, when we acknowledge that we've made error, the government is human, they are liable to make mistakes. But I think that the population, the civilian population, the oppressed and the suppressed masses would forgive them if they acknowledge that they made an error, that he died in their hands as a result of torture, but that it was not an official policy. We can see reason in that. But trying to spin the unspinnable is farcical. It doesn't fly in the face of logic in 2020, in this period of the internet. So I think that they are trying to communicate in 2020 in the 1980, 1970 mode. They should change. They should have to up their game. And if they are honest enough, each and every one would forgive them, and we would hope and pray that such atrocities or such massacres don't happen again in the country.
All right, Barrister, we are rounding up. In 1 minute, the government of Cameroon is urging the separatist fighters to drop down their guns so that reconstruction can take place, so that normalcy can return, so that peace can return in those two regions. What do you think about that? Is it a possible way out?
I believe in peace. I believe that we should find a holistic solution to what is happening in this country. I think a lot of people are tired. A lot of people want to go back to normalcy. But also, there is a way that it has to be done. I think the two parties in the conflict should try to sit down and have a discussion. I was happy the other day when I followed online and I spoke to some people who attended the meeting between the leaders who are in jail and some government officials. At least that is a step in the right direction. I don't expect us to get a solution tomorrow, but I think that we have started something. It's a journey, because this also would have to be followed up by some of the friends of Cameroon, for example, the UNDP, which is an implementing partner interested in the first stage of recovery, because our people have suffered a lot, and there's the need for reconstruction. But Babila, you see, this country is a very complicated country. I just got a text a few minutes ago, a communique from the Minister of Communication. I don't know if you've received it, to the effect that the purported meeting between separatists awaiting trial and the government, something like it didn't take place. You see, in as much as we blame people in the separatist movement that they wouldn't want peace, there are also people in government who don't want an end to this crisis. There are hardliners, there are hawkish, there are hawks in the regime who think that they would only win through force. But nobody wins through force. If you claim that you have a victory, the population would have suffered. The common man would have lost his or her life, property would have been destroyed, the economy would suffer. So whilst calling on our friends, our brothers in the various separatist movement to try to see how they can talk, and get into a veritable negotiation with government, we are also having those hawks in government who don't want things to work. That some of them believe that it should be their way or the highway. If they are not involved, nothing should happen. That we live in these regions, we go through the trials and the tribulations, the hurdles, suffering on a daily basis. There is time, that we need a negotiated settlement. We need to find a solution to this crisis so that life will go back to normalcy.
Barrister Agbo Bala, human rights lawyer and founder, president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Goodbye.